What if I tell you that there is an ambitious blueprint of how to grow Nigeria's economy to $1 trillion by 2030?
That Nigeria has the potential to become a $1 trillion economy.
It wasn't something the president woke up one day and just decided that it was a nice thing to say.
The reforms are biting.
Are ordinary Nigerians actually feeling this recovery?
The only way forward for Nigeria is for them to open the economy. If you don't have security, you cannot do anything.
But of course, reforms by themselves are not enough to be able to make things work.
In this video, I am going to break down how Nigeria can grow its economy to $1 trillion. What are the barriers to Nigeria achieving a $1 trillion economy by the year 2030?
President Tinubu made that pronouncement, when he made that promise, when he made that some kind of forecast, that Nigeria has the potential to become a $1 trillion economy. The question I want to ask is, what's the plan?
Now, let's talk about the plan. Is anybody putting anything in place other than just mere rhetorics?
It wasn't something the president woke up one day and just decided that it was a nice thing to say. As a matter of fact, it's inside the campaign document. There's a campaign promise. There are many things that need to be done, many of which have been done already. What we promised was double-digit growth. I think the president has been very astute in doing the right thing, which are the the reforms that have been done. So first of all, the thing I need to let you know is, if we say we want to achieve a $1 trillion economy as an aspiration, what we're saying is, in essence, that look, we're going to challenge ourselves to do the right thing and to get the economy growing at a faster clip with a lot more productivity on the part of everybody. If we are able to achieve 700 out of 1 trillion, I think that's a pass mark. When you plan, you needn't achieve 100% of your plan, but you challenge yourself by setting very high standards. They say those who aim for the skies may sometimes find themselves among the stars. If you don't aim, you're never going to achieve. What many people unfortunately do these days is they are unable to imagine a new Nigeria, unable to imagine a Nigeria that works. And all of the rhetoric and narrative that they are pushing is all about, that same mediocrity, where we're coming from. We can't get past that. And I keep telling them Nigeria will change and advance, even in spite of Nigerians and in spite of our cynicism.
Now, let us break down the hows. And by that, I mean how to grow Nigeria's economy.
The only way forward for Nigeria is for them to open the economy. And then I began to do a research. And in my research, I came up with about 9 strategies to have a robust economy. And I target P septics. P and then hyphen septics. The first thing that you must address is not just, you can have a projection and say this is where I'm going, but actually the focus should be on this strategy that I want to mention. Number 1, the P there talks about power, electricity. Every other thing you say about development without addressing power becomes a mere statement. So that's P number 1.
Nigeria's electricity sector remains one of the most talked about issues in our national life. Despite the billions invested over the years,
what do you do at the Niger Delta Power Holding Company?
Thank you very much. Good question, because a lot of Nigerians don't seem to know who we are and what we do. So the Niger Delta Power Holding Company was incorporated in 2005, and it was incorporated as a special entity to drive and implement the very ambitious National Integrated Power Projects, the NIPP, which was conceived by President Olusegun Obasanjo, former President Olusegun Obasanjo. And so it was conceptualized, to be able to ramp up our power generation, as well as scaling, bridging transmission and distribution, the associated transmission and distribution infrastructure gaps. So the NIPP, under the NIPP, this is 20 years under the NIPP now, and in 20 years we've built 10 power plants across 10 states. So far, 2 of the power plants are still under construction, but we have 8 that have been commissioned, although out of the 8, 6 are commercially operational because we have outages in those 2 power plants, which is in Bayelsa and in Alauji. So yes, we have 6 commercially operational power plants that are functioning optimally.
The reforms are biting. It's like someone who had, an open wound and the person goes into surgery. It's going to be painful. But at the time that pain, that the fellow is suffering that pain, what's the respite the person can get while the healing is on? That, I think, is what is important here. Everybody wants what the president is talking about, a $1 trillion economy. What are the things that Nigeria must do on a sustainable basis? Because I don't think it is possible for this government to achieve, just a second, for this government to achieve that $1 trillion economy. But the government can set the path for everyone else to follow.
We'll give it a
what
shot.
must happen?
Ayo, that's all we're talking about here. Even though, let's not detract from the subject of the day, which is about the 1 trillion. Of course, the issue of trickle down is a clear and present issue. And again, what was I was talking about cocoa farmers. They're farmers, they're Nigerians, they live in the rural areas, they made good money, and they're going to make even more money this year than they did last year. We're looking at 500,000 metric tons this year. They're farmers. Totally bad. It's not totally bad for everybody. People are doing cashew, people are doing sesame, people are doing hibiscus, people are doing a lot at the rural level. So part of what, in order to answer your question, the key thing that must be done has been done in terms of the key policies, including the tax policy that actually excludes those who are earning the least in Nigeria, including businesses that are doing turnovers of 4 million per month and below from taxes.
How to grow Nigeria's economy to $1 trillion.
If you don't have security, you cannot do anything. I recall I was a debt recovery agent for a commercial bank in Nigeria. About a few years ago, there are certain states in the country we couldn't go. I'm a Nigerian. I couldn't fly to some states at that time. The same way it will apply to a foreign investor who feels I'm not going to go to that place. So our attention should focus on those variables. 1, power. 2, security.
The foreign exchange market needs more stability to reduce volatility and consequently boost confidence in the investor.
The E there is exchange rate. Now, whether we argue from today till tomorrow, exchange rate is a factor that determines who you are as a country and how your country is. Now, if a country has the dollar exchanging at 2,000 or 1.5 in his own country, you will not compare with another country that's exchanging at 3 or 10 or 7 like China.
The Nigerian economy is the economic story beginning to shift into the start of a real recovery or just a fragile moment of stability. From ambitious revenue targets to easing inflation, the numbers are turning cautiously optimistic. The government is projecting over 40 trillion naira in revenues for 2026, while growth is expected to approach 5%, buoyed by reforms, improved oil output, and a steadier macroeconomic environment. Inflation, once at a relentless pressure point, is beginning to ease. The naira, after months of volatility, is holding within a tighter band. Are ordinary Nigerians actually feeling this recovery, or still struggling under the weight of high prices and weak purchasing power?
There's no doubt that the economy has reached a point of inflection, and we're beginning to see more than green shoots. But of course, reforms by themselves are not enough to be able to make things work. And in order for us to see the impact on the lives of Nigerians we've turned our economy into a sachet economy, and we have about 120 million Nigerians in multidimensional poverty. So the urgency of now is that we need to translate the gains of these reforms into sustainable and solid growth and productivity. That's the key issue. And for Nigerians to begin to feel the impact of these reforms, the economy has to grow between 8 to 10% on a sustainable basis. And the government has to put in those growth strategies in place to hit those numbers. 5% is good. It's larger than growth of population. But for a population of 200 million Nigerians, we need to see sustained growth at about 8 to 10%.
Tax to GDP ratio needs a boost, whilst expanding the tax net to include more participation to help stimulate growth in the economy.
So, the T there, address tax policy. But again, the exercise will be in futility if they do not quickly call state government to order. The right thing for state government to do immediately is to have repealed the consumption tax laws, because it amounts to double taxation when you pay value-added tax. And don't forget, we have given extra 5% to state government in exchange for that removal or repealing of those laws. So, since Tinubu came to power, the sharing was about 600 billion before. Since he got to power, it has been above 1 trillion. So you have increase in revenue, so you must not then become a problem to the citizen.
Capital buffers are very important, and here is where the banks come in. The banks need sufficient capital to support the economy.
The Central Bank of Nigeria has reaffirmed that the ongoing recapitalization of commercial banks is central to achieving the federal government's $1 trillion economy goal by 2030. CBN Deputy Governor Philip Ikeazo said the policy aims to create banks that are not just bigger, but stronger, inclusive, and better governed. He noted that, like the 2005 reforms, the exercise would enhance stability, competitiveness, and capacity to finance large-scale projects. But the main aim is strengthen the economy, especially with the $1 trillion goal that we are setting. And obviously this is also about credit and lending, and we've seen in times past it's only specific sectors, lucrative sectors like the oil sector, that get most of this credit. And I mean, SMEs have a role to play. So how can we ensure, what needs to be done so that we can ensure a spread?
The real sector and the SMSE are the ones that are meant to, drive the growth of the sector, the real sector itself, and not just the big players in the oil and gas, as the case is. So recapitalization in itself, it's one policy, but there are a number of things that the government, the regulators need to do, both from a fiscal point of view and a regulatory point of view, in order to drive, growth itself. So, there could be sector-led initiatives, by the CBN to mandate, the financial institutions to provide credit to a certain limit or threshold in order to ensure there's, financial inclusion, from that particular sector in order to drive performance as well.
To date, 20 banks have fully met the new minimum capital requirement. 20 banks have fully met the new capital requirement minimum, and a further 13 are at advanced stage of their capital raising processes, and quite frankly are expected to conclude within that stipulated time. It is expected.
Growing Nigeria's economy to $1 trillion will require modern industrial needs, and we will need to bridge and fill in skills gaps. In the Nigerian workforce, corruption needs to be brought under control because the forecast for not bringing it under control is dire. We're talking about corruption, if not controlled, taking up 37% of GDP by 2030. And surely we don't want that. Nigeria is on a trajectory of increased growth at the moment, according to the World Bank.
With the World Bank now describing the country as a global reference point for steady and credible reform leadership. That endorsement came during a high-level meeting at the presidential villa in Abuja.
Nigeria is a frequent example in my discussions with people around the world, presidents around the world, policymakers around the world, investors around the world, because I think in these 2 years, the results that have been achieved are really commendable. And what I have particularly appreciated and followed, if I may also add, is your steady direction that you communicate to the people of Nigeria, as well as outside of Nigeria, of the importance of the reforms.
Now, let's put balance into context here. Nigerians want to feel progress of economic growth in their pockets. On the ground, are there any barriers to this? At the moment, Nigeria's pathway to a $1 trillion economy is a delicate one. We need serious competence, character, and capacity to be able to deliver. And the question is, can Nigeria stay the course? Please give me a like and subscribe to the channel.